Nerfless Nerf herders, listen up! Welcome back, I'm Chaylo, and I'm using my real name for reasons that will hopefully become apparent later on. This video is to announce some major changes that are going to be taking place to the auxiliary. Primarily the auxiliary's online presence and how we're presenting ourselves to the world and to the wider community. Some serious changes are going to be made there. These are changes that have been needed for a long time, things that should have been put in place from the beginning, honestly. But I had no idea what the auxiliary was going to become, and so the infrastructure wasn't in place, and I had no idea that it would become, the huge thing that I was looking for. It wasn't my original intent. There's seems to be some wild speculation on what my master plan was to take over the Nerf world, and that just wasn't the case. My goal was to have 30 soldiers to lead at End War. That was my grand goal, and I haven't gotten there. But this is the attempt to fix some mistakes that were made early on and to try to push things in a more positive direction for both ourselves and for the community, because there are some aspects of the auxiliary that could definitely be better community-based and better PR for the hobby in general, but also ways that we could better focus on the actual goals that I have and that various members of the auxiliary have, so that it can work better all around. Because there are currently, in my opinion, 3 distinct entities that exist within what is broadly known as the auxiliary, and they don't all play well together, and they seem to cause some friction. And while there are people who really like certain core elements of it, they dislike other parts of it enough that they don't want to get involved, and certain things about the way things are done turn them off. And I understand that completely, because there are things about that go on in the auxiliary that I very much do not like and couldn't figure out how to do anything about, and this is an attempt to fix some of those. The first element, and it was the original intention, is the militia side of it, the soldiers, so that I could go to End War, and even though I can't bring the crew with me, because if I could pull all of the crew out of the woodwork, I could maybe scrape together 10 or 15 troops, and then getting them to Georgia or Pennsylvania or wherever the event is would be impossible, because most of them don't have the privilege and the opportunities that I have, as far as having expendable income and having time off that I can travel with, and having a job that will give them those opportunities. The vast majority of the crew don't have that. The vast majority of people in general don't have that. And so while I can travel, I can't bring my soldiers with me to lead into battle, and so the goal was to have a militia so that anywhere I went, I could draw on 10, 15, 20, 30 soldiers and lead them in battle, because that is what I enjoy doing. I've enjoyed doing that since I was in 2nd grade, and I was getting my class to reenact the Battle of Gettysburg at recess, or do submarine battles, because I'd seen Das Boot and turning the log cabin thing into a submarine, and giving battles and depth charges, and then getting overrun by girls with troll dolls. The 80s were weird. That's what I really wanted. I wanted soldiers that I could lead. And I had wanted to go into the military, and a lot of people say, well, why didn't you? Well, by the time I was old enough to join the military, I had broken my leg, ruined my lower back, and damaged both of my knees. And so it just wasn't an option anymore. And so I do it in the ways that I can, through LARP, essentially. I play at being a soldier because I wasn't able to be one in real life. And so the first time where I really got to start leading troops was when we created the crew, and I had this band of mercenary, pirate, sword swashbuckling types that we would go to wars and just, roll over everybody and had so much fun. That was the thing that we constantly were told by people that saw the way that we played, is that we were playing the game that they wish that they were playing, and I never understood why they weren't playing that game. But that's how it works sometimes. And so the auxiliary was created for people who couldn't join the crew proper, because we did have standards on membership, and you had to be able to come to our training and get our drill, because we were professional soldiers. We marched in formation, we had orders and strategies and tactics, and you had to be a professional soldier for that to work. You had to be trained, you had to drill, you had to have all of that. But there were people who, they would go to events and they'd want to be on our side, and we could always use extra troops. We could use skirmishers, we could use scouts, we could just use more people on the line. We just had to understand that they may not have the same, expertise that we had. And that's what the auxiliary was. And it's existed almost as long as the crew has existed, which has been for over a decade and a half now. And so when I launched it, the Nerf auxiliary, as it were, it was in order to get those troops, to have troops. So when I went to End War, I could call up troops, and they would lead, I could lead them in battle. It was never about ruling anything or being, having all this power and influence. I don't make a good ruler, but I make a good leader on the field. I like being on the line with my troops and all of that. And that was the military aspect. And I don't expect the auxiliary militia to ever be on the same level of professionality as the crew was, because you don't have the opportunity to get the training that we go through. Many of you probably are actually veterans and do have that training, and that's awesome. And those are really the types that I'm looking for and who will probably be interested in that semi-professional side of things. But a lot of people see milsim as a dirty word in this hobby. And I understand why, but I still find it kind of silly, because when you break it down, all Nerf is a form of milsim. Two kids playing with jolts in their backyard. That is a very, very primitive form of milsim. You're using a simulated gun to simulate shooting each other. That's milsim. It just is. But how serious you take it matters. Me showing up in my full heavy loadout with tier and my mask to a public park event, that's inappropriate. That is too far. But somebody showing up in jeans and a t-shirt with a jolt to Afterworlds and just wanting to walk around tagging people is equally inappropriate. They're not taking it far enough. And there is a degree where things need to be separated. And I understand a lot of the concern that people have with the auxiliary is that we're not going to separate it. That we're always going to show up to every event in full black tactical gear. And so they kind of shy away from that whole military thing. Plus the whole, our mods are NCOs and it's Sir, yes, sir. I had somebody get very upset because I expected them to call me sir on our Discord. Well, this is a militia Discord and I'm the commanding officer. You're supposed, if I give you an order, that's part of the game that we're playing, is that I am the captain and you are one of my soldiers. And a lot of people they didn't understand that, or they didn't want to be a part of that. That wasn't what they were here for, and that's understandable. Because the auxiliary has expanded to be this large community, this inviting community of everyone is welcome and everyone can come be a part of it. And not everyone wants to be a soldier, and most people don't even have it in them to be a soldier. It's a very specific personality to be a true soldier. Anyone can be a fighter if put in the right situation, but being a soldier is different. And soldiers are what I want in the military side of things. But what we have become is, the community with the philosophy of more fun for everyone. That's not a particularly military or martial policy. And I understand that. And that's where the things have kind of gotten muddled, is that we're going to be soldiers, which are generally, exclusive and elitist and professional and all of that. And then over here we've got the goofiness and the silliness and the openness, and everyone is invited and let's just have fun. And those things were not mixing well, and that is very, very true. And that was something that I realized, okay, we need to do something about this. And so that's where the main separation is going to be. There will still be the militia side. It will be the combat division. And that will be for the people who are seriously interested in the milsim side of things, and being the professional soldiers, or semi-professional soldiers at least, that follow the crew and fight with the crew and answer the call when I need troops when I go to a big event. And that will be a separate thing. That will be organized, and that will be very different, and will be structured, and will be mostly invitation. So don't get ahead of yourself and try to ask me about that. I'll make a video about that when we get that set up. But what we currently have, what is currently our Discord and our Facebook, are going to be demilitarized. We are going to be getting rid of the NCO standards as far as our mods go. The name will be changed. I will no longer go by Captain Xavier on those. I already on my Facebook already go by my real name. But on the Discord, my name will change to just Chaylo, because I'm part of the community. I'm not trying to be the commanding officer and steer it the way I want it to be. It'll be community-based, and will be more open and more inviting, and we'll no longer have any of that militaristic stigma that a lot of people find to be off-putting, and understandably so. The final element is the root beer cult, I guess you would call it. The Captain Xavier fan club kind of thing that any celebrity is going to have. The cult of personality that springs up, where, especially with kids on YouTube, because as far as children these days are concerned, and even teenagers these days, big YouTubers are celebrities every bit as much as TV stars and movie stars are to them. They probably watch more YouTube than they watch television, and so us YouTubers are their fans, and you end up with the fanboys and fangirls and all of that, and that is very distinctly an element, and many people find that very off-putting when somebody worships a celebrity, and I find it to be weird, but I also love getting sent stuff, especially root beers. That was a new one. When people started sending me fancy root beers from all over the place, like, never had this one before. Oh, that is horrific. Or, oh, that is marvelous. Send me more. And that kind of stuff. And that is, I'm not saying that needs to go away. If you are a big fan of the Captain Xavier personality, but it is acknowledging that is not what the auxiliary is all about. That it's not supposed to be my private Captain Xavier fan club that everyone oohs and ahs at me and that I'm in charge of, and we will take over everything. No. On the new Discord, when we restructure, there will just be a root beer cult channel for talking about root beer. And there will also be Lego channel there and board game channel and more hobby stuff that will expand from just Nerf. The primary focus will still be Nerf because that is the primary thing that's bringing people in and all of that. But we already have stuff for gaming and things like that. So there will be more options, more variety. It'll be a little bit more loose. So yeah, the names will be the primary change. They'll have the auxiliary community will be the main one, and again, anyone will be welcome. Then the combat division will be the combat side, and then the root beer cult will have a channel and try to keep it there. The mod structure, like I said, it will no longer be NCOs. It won't be lance corporals, and sergeants. It will be moderators, administrators, developers. People who are running the back end. I do still expect you to treat them with, treat them according to the authority that they've been given. If they give you, tell you not to do something, don't do it. If they tell you, hey, that's not acceptable, then that's not acceptable. There are going to be some updates to the rules. We are going to be changing some of the rules. We've added a few, but we've also dialed back some of them. Since Discord and Facebook are both restricted to 13 and above because of COPPA, obviously, they are going to be shifted to being a little bit more PG-13. There won't be quite as much restriction on language or topics. That does not mean you are now free to swear as much as you want. You still are. I would prefer it be, keep it relatively clean, keep it relatively, fun. Read the rules. You will be required to read the rules. You will be expected to know what the rules are and where the limits are and all of that. But they will be a little bit simpler, and things will be a little bit less tightly restricted. Obviously, like I said, we will be demilitarizing it all. The roles will be demilitarized, so they won't have... Currently, most of the roles on the Discord are based on what squad type you are or what unit type you are, whether you're a heavy or a scout or a hunter or a feral, all of that. That will be eliminated entirely. That will still exist on the combat side, so don't worry. That's the thing is, nothing is actually being fully eliminated. They're simply being separated for reasons. So all of the combat structure stuff will still exist. It just won't be on the community side, which is by far the larger side. The channels will also be changed around a little bit so that, like I said, there will be more additional hobby stuff. There will be a section for Lego and for board games and for additional hobbies if people request it. If enough people ask for a channel or a category to be created, then we will create one. And then if a category isn't getting much traffic, we may roll it into another one, a general gaming or a general hobby stuff type category. Again, combat stuff will be still separate. It doesn't mean you can't talk about loadouts and you can't talk about gear. There will still be categories for talking about all of that because that is as relevant in the broad community as it is in the auxiliary combat division specific section. So all of that mod topics will all still be there, and general advice stuff will still be there, and general chatting, and everything that exists now will still exist somewhere. It just may be separated or relabeled or renamed or something along those lines. There will be a new frequently asked questions. We're working on reorganizing that and figuring out which questions are we constantly having to re-answer, and so we can just point people, go read the FAQ, it's probably in there. Disciplinary update. Like I said, we are loosening the rules a little bit in some ways, but there are still the general philosophy of more fun for everyone. And we also will still not allow bigotry and bullying and all of that sort of stuff that we never allowed in the first place, we're not going to suddenly start allowing it now. The sorts of things that would get you banned before will still get you banned. Previously, you'd get warned for language, and so now we just won't get warned for that. But if you come in and are spouting, bigotry and hate and making fun of people and just being an elitist jerk or a bully about stuff, yeah, that still is not going to be tolerated. That is not going to remotely become okay. And one of the things that will be getting changed is that our disciplinary logs will now be public. One of the things that we keep running into is we'll ban somebody for being just an absolutely horrific troll, and then they'll go to some other Discord and claim that, well, I got banned for doing nothing. And because we kept our logs secret, we didn't really have any option to prove otherwise. Well, now they will be public. Why you were banned will be a matter of public record. People can just go and look. Oh, here are the things he said, and here's us telling it's not okay, and here's him doing it again, and here's us telling it's not okay, and here's him telling us that, well, I don't care, what are you going to do about it, and here's us banning him. It'll all be there. If since it's a public board, what you do on it will be public record. If you don't like that, well, then don't come to our board and be a jerk. There are going to be some additional bots in order to deal with a lot of the simple moderating stuff that we just can't be bothered, that our cookie cutter stuff. The response is always going to be the same. We don't need a person to do it. We can have a bot do it. There's also going to be bots that are going to be tracking some stuff so that we can keep better records and so that if something comes up, we have ways of dealing with it. There is going to be a whole new joining the server system where you are required to read the rules before you gain access to the server. And that way, if you break the rules, you can't claim, well, I didn't know. Like, well, you couldn't be here if you didn't know, so you know, and so you can bugger off. Video, video became a suddenly and unfortunately contentious issue because somebody did something very, very inappropriate, and it became a serious liability because there are minors on the server. And we had a minor do something that was very much not okay, and it became a questionable thing of, do we want to allow video? Because if something like that happens again, can we be held accountable? And so it is going to be coming back, but it will probably be coming back in a very limited capacity. You will have to request video rights, and they will be granted to you for specific reasons. It'll probably be an 18 and up. You won't have minors that have video access for obvious reasons. But you'll be given access if you want to do streams, or if you're wanting to do a group video chat, if you're doing a live stream, or you're showing off mods, or you just want to hang out and be able to see each other, because that really does help. We're working on how to best work on that. That's one of the things that we've done since we started this server, is that we do change our policies as things come up. Things will come up. We had no idea how to deal with this. We had no policy in place, and then it ends up blowing up and being an absolute mess, and when it all settles, we put in place a new policy for how to deal with this. This came up the first time that we ended up being asked about intellectual property rights. The first time somebody came to us and said, I think this person is, violating my intellectual property rights, and they're part of your group, so, and we handled it, and I agree now and believe that we handled it poorly, but then we didn't have a policy in place. Now we have a policy in place to make sure that doesn't happen, and so things with like working out our policy with video. How are we going to do that? How are we going to make sure that it's safe for us, that it's safe for you? That'll be something that'll get put into place as things go along. Roles. Roles are apparently a big part of Discord. People really get into their roles. And so we are going to be using them both functionally as well as cosmetically. So the functional ones will be used for your region, and it'll be large geographical regions like the Pacific Northwest, the Southwest, Texas will probably be its own, stuff like that. And so whatever region you're in, you'll be able to have that role, and that way if somebody comes to like the looking for group channel, they can ping their region, and it will ping the other people that are from that area, and they can hopefully connect up, and maybe they can find a club and all of that. There will also be ones for skill sets, so for people who are particularly good with flywheels, people who are particularly good with springers, people who are good with LPA or HPA or programming or stuff like that. You'll be able to be given a role based on skill sets you have, and then when somebody goes into the mod the mod advice channel, they can ping flywheeler experts or Springer experts, and hopefully somebody who has that role will be able to then go and explain how things work. We are then looking to add ones for specific clubs, and this is more of the cosmetic one, is if you're in a particularly large club and you want to have that be a role so that you can ping your club or what have you. It'll be based, for those ones, it'll be based on a minimum size. You'll have to have at least this many people who are going to be having that role, and then we'll create that role and we'll give it to anyone who is a part of that club. And that's just because there's a limited number of roles, so you can't have every single person have 5 made-up roles for their imaginary squad that they're in. It needs to be one that actually exists and that there are actually enough people for that to be worth giving up one of our roles for. So that is, I hope, the bulk of it. The changes will start getting rolled out on Thursday. That is when the server name will change, my title will change, the channel will start getting changed. The bots will getting rolled into place. The things will start getting demilitarized. It will be a process. It is not going to happen overnight. Well, some of it will, but there will be things that we'll figure out. Oh well, that didn't work, and we'll need to change things. So we are asking for your patience. We don't have a huge staff, and there is a lot of work that needs to be done. So there will be some disruption in services. Please remain calm. Everything that currently exists will continue to exist somewhere. Some of it may not exist on this server for a while. All of the combat stuff, that server is still being built. We're still trying to work out how exactly we want to organize that, because while it is still largely going to be open to anybody, there are going to be limitations. The big one is that part is actually going to be based on an ability to participate, because that's going to be mostly about communication, about training, about drill, about equipment, and it is specifically intended for people who are actually at some point going to take the field of battle with me. If you're never going to be able to, then there's not a whole lot of purpose for you to be on that server, and that is what the community server is for. That is so you can still be a part of everything that we do and hear all of the stories and be involved and make friends and all of that. The combat one is meant to be an actual functional militia of, I want soldiers to lead at this event. And so that will be run very, very differently. It is going to be run more professionally. It will not be the general banter and the hobnobbing and on the camaraderie that happens on the main server. That is what the main server is for. This one is going to be a functional combat server so that can all get organized. The other thing that will be handled by the community side was all the stuff that I talked about in a previous video about the logistics, helping with volunteers for events, helping with carpools, helping with information. What are the rules for this big event? Where's the parking for this event? Where are the hotels that are set up for this event? All of that will still happen on the community side, so that information will be available to absolutely anybody. It'll be on our Facebook, it'll be on our Discord, so if you're going to that event, all of that information will be available, and we will still be reaching out to the events and going, what do you need? Do you need more chronographs? Do you need more volunteers? Do you need people to help set up? Do you need people to help tear down? What do you need? We have people that are going and who are willing to help. So that is what the community side will be, because that is, again, the whole goal of the community is more fun for everybody. So, okay. I think that covers everything. I hope that covers everything. I know you are going to have so many questions. And when this video goes live, I am going to be out of town and traveling. So give it a day. The things aren't going to go into place until Thursday. If you have questions, you can ask the Discord staff, you can ask the Facebook staff. Commenting on this video isn't going to do you a whole lot of good, because I don't know when I'm going to have time to actually sit down and read all of the comments. Because I'm going to be helping a friend who's going through a tough time. She recently lost somebody, so I'm going to be helping her. And so the timing is not great, but the timing is what it is. Do not freak out. Do not panic. Nobody is going to be getting purged from the auxiliary. You will still get the opportunity to follow me into battle if that is something you really want. If that's not something you've ever been interested in, now you don't have to feel in any way pressured to be part of my army, or whatever it is people see the auxiliary as. So, yeah. there we go. There we go. Thank you for watching, and bangarang.